Check this out. BCM Raider here, bringing you another Commander deck tech. Today we're looking at Ultra-Magnus Tactician. He's a Transformer robot wearing the Naya colors, and we're going to be doing many different things with Ultra-Magnus. Just Ultra-Magnus himself has a couple different ways you can cast this card. He has a alternate cost, which is more than meets the eye. So for 2 colorless and 1 red, 1 green, 1 white, we can cast it transformed as a vehicle, which is living metal. He'll be a 4/7 with haste and formidable. Whenever Ultra-Magnus attacks, attacking creatures we control gain indestructible until the end of turn. And if those creatures' total power are 8 or greater, we get to transform this back. So it'll transform back into a 7/7 artifact creature with Ward 2. But whenever Ultra-Magnus attacks, you may put an artifact creature from our hand on the battlefield, tapped and attacking. And we have no shortage of very large artifact creatures. So, let's get right into this. So first up, we have Liberator, Urza's Battlethopter. This is a 1/2 flash flying artifact creature. We can cast colorless spells and artifact spells as though they had flash. And whenever we cast a spell, if the amount of mana spent to cast that spell is greater than Liberator's power, Liberator will get bigger. Now we have Foundry Inspector. That way our artifact spells cost 1 less. Now we have Scrap Trawler. He's going to help us get back all these various artifacts. Now we have Solemn Simulacrum, because he's a sad robot, and robots need friends. Now we have Lochiel, Clockwork Scholar. We're going to prevent all combat damage that would be dealt to attacking artifact creatures we control. But if 1 or more artifact creatures enter the battlefield, we get to draw a card every single turn. Now we have Joyra's Familiar. This is a nice helpful artifact bird that's going to make all our historic spells cost 1 less, whether they be artifacts, legendaries, or sagas. Now we have Geode Golem. This is a 5/3 with trample, and whenever it deals combat damage, we get to cast our commander without paying its mana cost. Alright, now we got a fun one. We have Alibu, Ancient Witness. He's going to give all our other artifact creatures haste, because that's going to be very important that we can attack with these very large creatures. But whenever 1 or more artifact creatures we control attack, Alibu will deal X damage to any target, and we scry X, where X is the number of tapped artifacts we control. Now we have Bronze Guardian. This is a star 5 double striking artifact creature with Ward 2. And he's going to give Ward 2 to all our other artifacts. And his power is going to be equal to the number of artifacts we control. Now we have Canoptic Spider. This one's really cool. He has a ability called Fabricator Claw Array. So whenever another non-token artifact creature or vehicle enters the battlefield, we get to draw a card. Now we have Iron Soul Enforcer. He's going to be very beneficial because whenever he attacks, we get to return another artifact from our graveyard to the battlefield. Now we have Verdurous Gearhulk. This is just a very large 4/4 artifact construct. When it enters, we're going to distribute 4/+1 counters among any number of target creatures we control. Okay, now we have Combustible Gearhulk. This is going to give your opponents an option of allowing you to draw 3 cards. And if they don't, they're going to be taking a bunch of damage because most of our artifact creatures are very high mana costed. So the whole premise is we're trying to deal as much damage to our opponent as quickly as possible. Now we have Duplicant. Duplicant is going to exile a creature, but that creature you exiled, Duplicant is going to become an exact copy of. Now we have Soul of New Phyrexia. This is a very powerful card. This is a 6/6 with trample. You can pay 5 mana, and permanents you control will gain indestructible until the end of turn. You can also do this if Soul of New Phyrexia was in your graveyard. Okay, now we have the iconic Wormcoil Engine. This is a very scary artifact creature. It's a 6 cost with Death Touch and Lifelink, and when it goes to the graveyard, it's going to split and become 2 separate artifact creatures. One's going to have Death Touch, and one's going to have Lifelink. Okay, now we got a fun one. We got Ruin Grinder. This is a 7/4 artifact construct with Menace. When it goes to the graveyard, each player is going to discard their hand and draw 7 cards. He's basically a sitting artifact creature that's a Wheel of Fortune. But he also has Mountain Cycling, so we can discard this, put it into our graveyard, and search for whatever mountain card we need. Okay, now we have Meteor Golem. This guy's going to enter and destroy any non-land permanent we want. Now we have Angel of Ruins. When Angel of Ruins enters the battlefield, we're going to exile up to 2 target artifacts or enchantments. It also has Plane Cycling. Now we have a very powerful one with Myr Battlesphere. Myr Battlesphere is going to enter the battlefield and give us 4 1/1 Myr artifact tokens. So that's even more artifact creatures that we can use. But whenever Myr Battlesphere attacks, we can tap any number of Myrs we control. And Myr Battlesphere will get +X/+O and deal X damage to either that defending player or Planeswalker. Similar to Wormcoil Engine, we have Triplicate Titan. This is already a 9/9 with Flying, Vigilance, and Trample. And when this goes to the graveyard, we're going to make a 3/3 Golem token of each of those abilities. Now we have the iconic Blightsteel Colossus. Really don't need to say too much more about this card. If you get hit with Blightsteel Colossus, you lose the game on the spot. And this guy is almost impossible to get rid of unless you exile it. Okay, that was all the very large artifact creatures. Okay, now we have Ugin the Ineffable. This card is very powerful. He's going to make all our colorless spells cost 2 less. We can plus them, exile the top card of our library face down. It'll become a 2/2 colorless spirit token. And when that token leaves the battlefield, that card goes back to our hand. And we can -3 and destroy any permanent that's 1 or more colors. Okay, now we have Daretti, Scrap Savant. We're going to use Daretti to put these very large artifact creatures into our graveyard. That way we can get them on the battlefield as fast as possible. Because all we have to do is -2 Daretti, sacrifice whatever artifact we want, and we're going to return one of those very large artifact creatures onto the battlefield. But his plus ability is going to help us do that by discarding 2 cards and then drawing 2. But if we get to his ultimate, We get an emblem. Whenever an artifact is put into our graveyard, we're going to return that artifact back to the battlefield at the beginning of the next end step. Okay, let's get into the artifacts. Of course, we're playing Soul Ring, Arcane Signet, Mana Vault, Talisman of Impulse, Talisman of Conviction, Mox Opal, Felwar Stone, Gilded Lotus. Now we have two very specific artifacts. We have Swiftfoot Boots because we're going to need all these large creatures to have haste anywhere we can. And to deal with our opponent's board, we have Nevinral's Disc. We can use Duretti to get them back because most likely Duretti won't be attacked. So we can ultimate Duretti and keep getting all these very large artifact creatures back every single turn. Okay, let's get into the enchantments. To ensure that all our creatures have haste, we have Rhythm of the Wild. And the static effect, our creature spells can't be countered, is going to be very beneficial for us. Now we have Up the Beanstalk. Because most of our creatures are going to be mana value 5 or greater, we're going to continually draw cards. Now we have Garrick's Uprising. That way we can continually draw more cards. But more importantly, we're going to give all of our creatures Trample. And Trample is very, very beneficial on very large creatures. Now we have Greater Good. If we have a way that we can keep recurring a very large artifact creature every single turn, we can sacrifice that creature at the end of combat. Then we can draw a lot of cards and then put more creatures we want to get back from our graveyard just by discarding. Now we have Warstorm Surge. Warstorm Surge is going to be responsible for throwing around as much damage as possible just when all these very powerful creatures enter the battlefield. Okay, let's get into the instants. Most of these are protection and removal spells. So we have Swords to Plowshares, Path to Exile, Dispatch. Dispatch I feel is a little underplayed, but it is very specific to artifact-based decks. Now we have Chaos Warp. Chaos Warp will deal with whatever pesky permanent your opponents might have, but also you can use this on your own permanents. Now we have Beast Within. This is gonna take care of a very large creature your opponents control. They'll get a 3/3 beast, but we don't really care too much about that. Now we have some protection spells. So we have Teferi's Protection, Flawless Maneuver, Heroic Intervention. Now we got a fun one with Boros Charm. Boros Charm is going to either deal 4 damage to a opponent, or we're going to make all of our permanents indestructible. Or if we have a very large creature, we're going to give that creature Double Strike to deal even more damage. Okay, let's get into the sorceries. We're playing red, so of course we're playing Jessica's Will. Now we have Rampant Growth, Farseek, Nature's Lore, Kadama's Reach, and Cultivate. There's a lot of early game ramp spells because we're running a lot of kind of expensive spells, and we're going to want to have as much mana available to us as possible. Now we have Harmonize. That way we can just draw 3 cards. Now we have a couple mass removal spells. So we have Austere Command. We're not going to worry too much if we destroy all of our artifacts, because we're probably just going to keep bringing them back. Now we have Blasphemous Act. Chain Reaction. Chain Reaction, I feel, is a little underplayed. It's actually a very powerful card. Now we have Vandal Blast. That way we can blow up all of our opponent's artifacts, and ours don't go anywhere. Now we got a fun one. We have Wake the Past. If we kind of destroyed every single artifact and those are in the graveyard, we're going to use Wake the Past to bring back every single artifact from our graveyard to the battlefield, and they're going to gain haste until the end of turn. And now we have Imposing Grandeur. Each player may discard their hand and draw cards equal to the greatest mana value of a commander they own. So we're just going to draw a lot of cards with this. Okay, let's get into the land base. This is a very simple land base. Here's our command tower. It's the Cybertron version because, you know, flavor. Now we have Jetmir's Garden, Temple Garden, Stomping Ground, Sacred Foundry. Now we got our check lands with Clifftop Retreat, Rootbound Crag, Sun Petal Grove, Cinderglade. Now we have a very nice fetch land with Crossenburge. This will enter tapped, but we pay 2 colorless mana, and we can search for a forest card and a plains card and put them both on the battlefield. Now we have Temple of Abandon, Temple of Triumph, and Temple of Plenty as our scry lands. Now we have our artifact lands. So we have Darksteel Citadel, Great Furnace, Tree of Tales, and Ancient Den. Okay, now we have a fun one. We have Gavany Township. That way we can continually make all of our creatures bigger by putting +1 counters on all of them every single turn. Now we have 6 mountains, 7 forests, 7 plains. I would like to suggest a couple lands, maybe some fetch lands like Wooded Foothills, Windswept Heath, stuff like that, and possibly the new Surveil lands from Murders at Carlisle Manor, but everything is open to interpretation, so I would really like to hear your guys' opinions and suggestions on this build. But that was the deck tech for Ultra-Magnus Tactician. I really hope you guys enjoyed this deck tech. This is a very fun deck, and be sure to like, comment, subscribe, follow me on TikTok, share these videos, and I'll see you guys in the next one.